All right, hello everyone. Welcome to the Remarkable Edge. This side over here on LinkedIn going live where bold execution meets brilliant breakthroughs. I am your host, Dr. Vernita Glenn-White. I go by Dr. V and I am your brilliant solutionist. So I'm so excited to have you here. And this is our first episode. Last week, I gave you kind of an introduction of why I started the Remarkable Edge live series show. And today we are diving right on in. So let me ask you a question before we start. Well, it's not really a question. I just want to just say this statement to you and see if you can resonate with me. I know that we've all been told a huge, huge lie. And you're probably saying, what is that, Dr. V? We've been told it and we've been sold it. And it is a big, expensive, well packaged lie. And if you are a leader, an entrepreneur, a decision maker, an industry titan, a visionary who who's leading the charge, you have these big thoughts and you've invested thousands and maybe even millions of dollars in either coaching or consulting without seeing any real type of transformation, then you already know what I'm talking about. And right off rip, if you can resonate, let me know because I've been there too. So today we are exposing the coaching and consulting lie and why traditional models are failing you and why you need something different that creates real sustainable breakthroughs. So right off, we're coming in hot. All right. So let me be clear. I'm not bashing any coaching, consulting, advisory, mentorship, strategist, any of that. You want to know why? Because I am one. And I've actually been one before I started in the small business space or becoming an entrepreneur. I was that. I was a coach and type of consultant in my days working as a K-12 teacher, a district leader, and also a college professor. So I am no way, shape, or form bashing any coaches or consultants or strategists because we need those people. And like I said, I am one. I was one professionally, and now I'm one out here on my own. But what I will say is that the industry is broken. It is an unregulated industry. And I come from a background where, even in the education profession, there are regulations and procedures and things that you need to follow to get certified and things like that. And I do understand that there is a national coaching federation and things like that, but it's still regulated because it's not mandatory. Just like, you go into a lot of professional services, you still need, credentials and certifications and testing, to enter into those fields, and they're mandatory, but it's not that way over here. So that's one way that is broken, but we won't harp on that for too long. And what is happening behind closed doors, we won't even get into that because there are so many things. I've personally been in a lot of coaching and coaching programs, masterminds, and things like that. I've worked on large teams, and some of our well-known people that you may have seen in the industry, I've been in their circles behind closed doors, and it's just not always what you think it is. And I believe we have to get to the point where we stop paying just for information without execution. And if we don't make a change right now, starting with you and I, if we don't break that cycle, it's going to keep going on and on. And the industry itself is going to keep booming because it is a multi-billion-dollar industry, but the results will not happen, right? So we love a booming industry, but we also want to make sure that our results are booming as well. So let's jump right into it. And so, why coaching and consulting often fails? I know we've heard it before, and you've probably heard me say this before, but if you haven't worked directly with me, then you know that, I'm not just saying these words, but I've said these things, but I've been told these things as well. So let me know if you've heard this before. If you just had the right strategy, if you just had the right framework, if you just work with the right coach or consultant, then everything will be fine. You're missing just the right thing, right? So, like I said, I've said this before, and you've gone and heard those same pitches before, whether it was online, in a webinar, or watching a video, or if it was in your boardroom and you had someone come by and say, if you just had the right insert whatever, then everything would change. But here's the truth. No matter what strategy you get, it's not the strategies themselves that create success. It is the execution. So again, it's not the strategy. A lot of you are out there looking for, just give me the right thing to do. And you're like, well, this thing didn't work. but did you execute? So think about it. If the strategy alone was enough, we will all have our dream bank accounts. We will all have our dream physical bodies. We will all have our dream lifestyle. We will all have our dream level of impact and influence that we desire just by watching free YouTube videos, LinkedIn live streams, Facebook streams, whatever free videos or reading free books or reading free information. We would have everything because it's free. We're just reading it. But the problem is all of those things are just strategies without execution and accountability. And there's no integration. And they're just a bunch of overpaid PDF things that are sitting in your Google Drive or in your inbox or, on your cabinet or in your files on your desktop, all of those things, right? All of those saved little videos, watch later that you have on and your YouTube, what do you call it? Like your YouTube playlist. Oh, let me watch this later. I'm gonna save it. Or all the notes that you're taking. All of those things, if they worked, you would be exactly where you want to be. Your company would be exactly where you want it to be. Your professional life would be exactly where you want it to be if it only required the strategy. But now we're moving forward because we're no longer doing that, because we are addressing the real problem that coaching and consulting models are only built on information transfer instead of transformation. Let me slow down and say that again because I get excited. You've probably been working through these models because you're so focused on information. They're transferring information. A lot of things that I do, especially if you don't come work directly with me, I do transfer information. But even me, I want to bring what I did in my professional life into this space as a strategist, coach, and consultant to make sure that I'm not just giving you transferring information. I also want you to have transformation even while you're just listening. So no more listening just to gather information. We are listening for transformation. The only way that transformation comes is through execution and application. All right. So let's break some things down. And let me know if this is you. You get a roadmap on what to do, but then there's no real world guidance for your unique situation, right? So a lot of times you may come into these massive programs or workshops or seminars, and there's a roadmap, but there's nothing that's guiding you specifically for your needs. Or you get insights. We love a great aha moment or a different perspective. Love that. But then there's no integration into your particular leadership style or your team or your business culture or your company culture, right? Or you get some motivation. We love a good dopamine hit, right? But then there are no measured results. And you don't know what to do beyond how you're feeling about a particular session. How many of you have gone to seminars or looked at, online trainings and you're like, oh my gosh, this is great. This is exactly what I need. But then the feeling wears off, or you're not sure how to implement it throughout your day-to-day work, or you don't know, like, okay, I got these steps, but I don't know how to plug that recipe into what I am actually doing. And that's what led me to really working. Well, actually, I was already working in this. I already felt that gap when I was getting my doctorate degree. I worked on this large team, we had $10 million grant, in the STEM field, and it was a lot of professional development happening. I also worked with Florida State on a large grant on a big professional development. And I noticed that the gap was we work with all of these teachers and administrators, school districts, giving them the great things on what to do, how to get the results that they were looking for, but there was no follow-up. There was no real world guidance. There was no integration, and there was no way to really measure the results after we left, because they were so hyped. But then when the hype wore off and we were no longer nowhere to be found, and it's not like, it's a bad thing. Like some consultants work like that. Like, hey, I just came to give you what you were looking for. It's the follow-up that falls through, but that's a different topic for another day. But I realized this is why a lot of leaders stay stuck, because they're getting so much information, so much, tactical parts, but they're not getting the guidance to execute. And if that's you, let me know. But then it's not just execution. It is also feedback, iteration, and the measurable results. And we're going to break that down a little more. So to slow down and recap, if you ever felt that way, it's not that you did wrong by getting a coach or a consultant or attending the workshops and webinars or the seminars. It is the what you're doing after that is causing the problem. So I am going to share something with you, and I'm going to tell you the story, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit behind the scenes, right? So I was working with a high level CEO, and they had already got the coaches. Well, back then they didn't call them like coaches. It was mainly, consultants and people coming in. So consultants coming in and to fix this problem, but it was like the problem was still there. And he invested like with a comma, 6 figures. I'm talking about high 6 figures. I'll just tell you, it's like $500,000 he's invested already over, the scope of different programs and people coming in, talking to his team and everything. But yet they were still struggling. They weren't getting the results. They didn't have, his team still didn't have the direction. And it's like, well, this person was well known. I know that what they're saying works, but why isn't it transferring over to my team? Why am I not getting the results that they are saying? And this is not me bashing the coach. This is me or the consultant. This is me focusing on this high level CEO. So I asked him a question. I said, well, how much of the the framework or the strategies you implemented from this consultant? And he was like, well, if I'm honest with you, probably about 10%. So I was like, so you thought that the consultant was going to come in, do a little dance, wave a wand, and you didn't really have to do anything. And so in his mind, he was like, well, we showed up. I brought the team in to listen and learn, and they took notes and did all the things, but I'm not seeing the results. And I said, well, that's where your problem lies. All you were doing, and so was your team, were just collecting information, and they've become this expensive library of unused notes. The consultant came and did what they were supposed to do. They presented that to you. Now, I'm not sure if they had any follow-up strategies, but I'm just gathering what the CEO told me. They paid for this person to come in, do the training, show them, these new techniques and everything. And then that was it, no results. So that's why I said, well, what did you do as the leader of your team? How much did you actually implement? And then that's where the 10% came in. And then so I said, well, it's not about you learning more. You all are brilliant, bright people. It's not difficult for you to learn these things, but it's the implementation that you all are struggling on. And it's not the implementation where you think, oh, I took some notes, so I feel like I'm doing something, or I showed up, but so I feel like I'm doing something. But did you do the steps in the framework? Here's one example that I had, and it ties into working with this consultant, and I know this person. So when I was there, I knew exactly what the consultant came and talked about. I came in behind the consultant and said, I'm just going to take one department, and I'm going to show you exactly what that like how what that consultant did translates to this particular department. And I worked through every part of that consultant's framework for that specific. This is where I talked about that specific guidance for their unique, like department culture. And then they were able to get the results because I implemented that framework with fidelity, using the feedback, the iteration, and the implementation and things like that. And so that's where I meant that's what I meant about moving just from information to implementation. And implementation is not you just showing up or sending your team to the workshop. It is now we're taking that and we're drilling it down and going through the steps for our unique department culture or things like that. And the leader had to have, and I had to tell the leader, you have to have enough of this content knowledge. I don't want to get too deep, but you have to have enough of this particular type of content knowledge to lead that team and to guide them, even if your expertise is not in the what the consultant said. But that's a different topic. But I just want to give you that example. And so when I showed that CEO that, then it was like, oh my gosh. So now he has a different perspective of what it means for implementation. And I know you might be thinking like, oh, that's just common sense. But you can look at your organization, or you can look at, your life, your business right now, and see, okay, I've had all of these people come in. I looked at all of these things. Has the needle actually moved forward? And I'm not even talking about just by a little bit. Considering the investment that you've made, you should be seeing massive results. And if you're not, then you need to take a step back and say, well, where is the gap? Where is the implementation gap, I should say? And like I said, it's more than just showing up and sitting there, sending your team off or taking the notes, or having the consultant come in and do the presentation. It is what you're doing after that as a leader. So what is the answer to all this? How do we fix this problem? Because after all, I am solutionist. So how do we fix this problem? So if traditional coaching and consulting isn't enough, then what is? And it is for you to find someone that's a solutionist, or if they're not an actual solutionist, like with a solutionist mentality, right? There's a time and a place, and I want to say this, there's a time and a place for all of these levels. There's a time when you only need a coach. There's a time when you only need a strategist. But if you've been in this space for a while and you've already done these things, now it's time to think about the solutionist, a solutionist or the solutionist approach, where you don't just get told what to do, but it's actually built in execution frameworks to make it happen, right? So I know some strategies and I know the end result. Who's going to be right here in this middle with me to ensure that we get this done, right? So how do you know that you're working with a solutionist or someone with a solutionist mentality when it's time for you to get the outside support that you deserve and that you need to move your company forward? So one, they prioritize implementation over inspiration. Less hype, more measurable results. You don't need somebody to come in and just only rah rah. There are some phenomenal people out there who do come in and you do need that boost every once in a while. But what happens, after the 45 to 90 days when it starts to wear off and it's like, okay, I still need my team going. I still need those results. So you need someone who comes in, maybe complement the inspirational, motivational person to make sure that that is still carried out until you get your desired results. Number two, they challenge your systems, not just your mindset. So I love personal growth. If you're on my other platforms where I talk about the remarkable shift, that's more about your personal leadership. So I believe wholeheartedly in your personal leadership, your personal growth. But then there are times where you need to focus on operational shifts as well. Because if you don't, then nothing sticks. So you need both. So it's almost like, think of an athlete. And if you're a high level, performer, CEO, top person, then you are like an athlete of your industry. There are times when you're on the practice field, like let's say basketball, and you're dribbling with the team, you're doing all of the fundamental things. So that's like your personal development. Behind closed doors, you're working on those things. But then you transition into game day where you are out there real world with the other team. And so that's just like you doing your operational stuff. So now like how did all of my personal leadership or all of my internal training, how is that strong enough for me to get the outer results? Another example, because I just watched this movie again, The Karate Kid, the newer version with Jackie Chan and Jaden Smith, where he did all of this training with Mr. Han and, all of the things. But when it was time for his tournament, the first time that the opponent came at him, he ran out of the circle and he almost got disqualified because it's like, oh, this is real life coming at me. Like I was doing all my good stuff, jacket on, jacket off, right? So it's almost like you're going to a lot of seminars, you got a lot of consultants, you've seen a lot of presentation, you watched a lot of videos, and you're doing all of your jacket on, jacket off kind of things, right? But then it's like when it's time to get into the real world, you got real problems, real things that you're doing in the job or in your career. Then it's like, whoa, what is this, right? Because now you have to put that into action. That's a long way of saying that you need both, but there are times where after you build up a level of your mindset, now it's time to get into the tactics and the operation, and then you'll know what needs to get more strength and what to focus on. But you need both, but you can't stay in either one too long in isolation. All right. So that's the long way of saying, like, that's how you know that you're working with a solutionist as well. The third way of knowing, excuse me, that you're working with a solutionist is they integrate real feedback loop. So you're constantly adjusting and optimizing, not just waiting until everything is over for your insights. I was really big on this one in my professional space, even when I was a K-12 teacher, right? Moving into this space, I was always big on evaluation and feedback. First, that was the nature of the job. But then when I became an instructional coach, I constantly had to do that for my entire mathematics department. Then when I worked at the district level, I did this for multiple school settings. And then as when I started my own consultancy agency, I did this for larger universities. And then in my dissertation, I was doing this create a whole framework on evaluation and feedback. And then as a college professor, right? So I've been really big on what it means for feedback, real-time feedback loops to get your desired results. And it's not just a good job. It is targeted, it is specific, it is ongoing, and it always ties into your desired outcome. And it's a way to do that with your team to get those results. So when you have a solutionist, it's not just, oh, we'll just wait till the project is over to get the feedback. It is constant. I will say this, I did get fired as a college professor. Go look at my YouTube channel. But one reason why I did that is because I challenged how feedback was given. I was on tenure track. I won't get into the story, but I challenged how the feedback was given. And that's why I said all feedback is not created equal. And when I challenged that, I'm like, what are you going to look at? You know, if you're going to look at the end results of what you wanted and this is your measuring stick, I'm following this. But if you're going to use this other metric, which is not really stable, but you're basing my livelihood on this, we have a problem. So you have to be open to a solutionist coming in and challenge. That's one thing, challenging your systems. And one system is how you are providing feedback, right? So when I say that, I am really big into feedback, and I can look at not just certain, like, I know all of the metrics to look at, but what are the metrics, the feedback metrics that are going to move us forward? And if you're so hung up on old school metrics or feedback metrics that no longer serve your team, then that's the reason why you're not getting the results. So you need to be open to different types of feedback loops and targeted and focused. You know, it's a whole nother thing about feedback. But the reason why you do that is because you're constantly progress monitoring and you're constantly on the right track, instead of just like, now we're in Super Bowl season at the time of this video. One way to think about it is, yes, the end goal is the Super Bowl. And if you're on the team, every time first of all, you've been practicing, right? That's your mindset behind the scenes. But every time you go against the opponent week after week, that's that operational tactical stuff. And every time you have a game, then you go back to the drawing board and say what worked, what didn't work. You don't go through the entire season. It's not like you never go back and practice again. You don't go to game after game without practice in between, and then just go to the Super Bowl without evaluating every one of those games or not getting feedback from every one of those games. You have to treat your company, your organization, your professional career just like that. And a solutionist takes that approach. Okay. So that is why I have created this kind of approach to the live series of the Remarkable Edge over here, because it's not just a live show, like I said in my first video, but it is a space where I want us to come and focus on bold execution so you can get those real breakthroughs and have that lasting impact. So whether you work directly with me or not, I still want you to hear something from every episode that you can say, you know what, let me take this back to my team. So I'm hoping today, or whenever you listen to this, that you are able to go back and say, let me check out my feedback, or let me check out the last time we had a strategist or a coach or consultant, and let me look at what they gave us. Did I, as the leader, fully implement or guide my team with, full fidelity in this direction to get those results? If you did, then that's a different conversation. If you did not, then go back, and especially if it was a good one, because most things work, right? There was a reason why you chose that person to come in. Go back and see what can we do as a team to really implement and execute so we can get these results. So what are we going to do today? I already told you one thing to do, but what are we going to do for real? We're going to take action. So let's talk about it. Something that you can do is to think about, am I falling into the coaching and consulting trap? And if you are the decision maker and you have this money to spend, then you have to think, am I spending it just because I need to spend it? Or am I really focusing on, is this the right move for my team? And making sure that it's not just information transfer, but more of transformation, right? So here's some things that you can do. I already told you, but let's break it down. One, you can audit your past investments. Look at every program, every coach, every consultant that you've worked with, and then think about how much of their advice that you, leader, actually executed. And if it's less than 50%, then you weren't missing the information. You were missing an execution plan. So number one, go back and audit your past investments. Number two, shift from learning to doing. Stop trying to just go to every workshop or every seminar. Stop just doing the check off the list like, oh, I did it. My continuing, learning. Stop doing that. Just like when people say, oh, I didn't learn this in school or school doesn't work. I was on the curriculum side. There are a lot of things that were in the curriculum. Now, it's a deeper issue, but I'm just saying there was a lot of things that were already there, but maybe it wasn't executed, right? Maybe it was just so much of just learning topics on topics instead of actually diving into the topics. Like my background is mathematics. You can learn about mathematics all day long, but you won't know that you got it until you start putting pencil to paper and solving the problems and getting like a contact sport, right? Your growth is a contact sport. You got to get in there. So you can't just keep watching videos or attending seminars. You actually have to take what somebody else is saying and doing it. So my challenge to you is find something after you went through your audit, and then do something about it within the next 48 hours, something tactical. All right. So no more knowledge hoarding, no more being an information junkie. All right. And then the third thing is work with solutionists like me or someone with that same mentality and not just coaches or consultants. Like I said, you will find some solutionists who have uh, consulting a part of what they do. And you may find some coaches and consultants who have solutionist tactics to what they do. But if you only have a coach, like I know some high level CEOs that only have a coach for their personal growth and development, that is great. Or I know some that only they have a coach that helps them with their business tactics and things like that. Fantastic. But then you also need a solutionist to come in to help make sure those gadgets are those gaps are being bridged. What did I say, Brad? I don't know what I said, but make sure those gaps are being bridged. You need a team with you to move forward. I looked at a lot of high level CEOs, and they all have, and then high level entrepreneurs and business owners. I mean, like high level. They all have a team supporting them because everyone has a different role. Think about football, because now we're in Super Bowl season. Yes, there's the head coach, but then there are also other coordinators, and I don't want to get too tactical because I don't know them all, but they're all different coaches who focus on different things, and they are all in alignment with the head coach. So you may have a top person, but then there are times where you need a special teams coach or a defensive coach or an offensive coach to come help you, because the goal is get the team to the Super Bowl, right? Get your team to be more productive, to get the revenue, to get the bottom line, to raise the top line, to do all of those things. The same within your career. You may say, oh, I just want to advance my career, but you advancing your career is still in the umbrella of a company still moving forward, right? And you yourself, you are a business within yourself. So that's just something to think about. All right. So for me, if you want to let me just try all of this out. I am doing something that I never offered before, but I am going to do it complimentary to the first people who are interested. And even if you want to just hear more about it, DM me or comment, get it done. And I will do like an audit of your past investments for coaching and consulting to see where the gap is. It's just a conversation. So don't be like, oh my gosh, just starting off with a conversation, because within the conversation, within like 30 minutes or so, you have to come prepared. Like say, this is everything that I've invested. I'm still not getting the results. Come to me and we have a conversation, and I can look at it and we can have a conversation to see, was it you or was it your investment? And I'm always going to lean towards you, because not blaming you, but I don't know what we're not talking to the other person. So we're going to focus on what you can do, right? You may need to hopefully it's just you not having to pay more and you can go implement and then we can talk there. But if you're serious and you're like, before I make another investment, let me go look at my shelf help. Let me go look at all the PDFs or the programs or the people that I've invested in, their frameworks, their notebooks, get all of that together. And if you just like, it's just too much, is overwhelming, comment down below, get it done, and we can have an audit complimentary for the first 10 people who are serious about, let me just make sure I don't go into 2025 just constantly investing without implementation. All right. So comment down, get it done. And I will make sure either you comment or send me a message on LinkedIn, and then we can start that conversation. I'll ask you a few things. Give yourself the gift of a conversation. It is, I would I will feel better knowing that we actually talked and you looked at it and said, oh my gosh, because the answer really could be in your hand already or your inbox or from the files of things that you've already gathered. I will feel better knowing that I was able to give you a different perspective to know, one, trust your judgment. Like you were right starting to work with these people, but now let's step up your leadership and give you the right tools and the insights to take what you have to drive your team forward. And you could be saying, well, why would you do this? Like I said, one, because I want to talk to you. I want to see what's going on out there. And two, this is just a way of me providing a service, and hopefully eventually you will come back with me. But even if I do that, then I know that your ripple effect will help towards my mission of helping brilliant people bankrupt a billion burial plots by living a life poured out above ground before you go underneath ground. I may never be able to talk with the people that you are working with, but if I can talk with you, give you a different perspective, something that you've already invested in, then you can go back and help those people become bigger, better, bolder, and whatever product or services that you are delivering. Now it really goes out and help those people and shift our world moving forward. Real talk. That is why I'm offering that. I did this privately with a group of people and they're like, oh my gosh. And they invested, $2,500 just for the conversation and a few tweaks. So, a few touch points along the way, but $2,500. But I want to do that for the first 10 people because I really do want you to get back into your decision making, trust your decision making, but then move forward with the information that you already have so you can start going to a higher level. I don't want you to just stay in the same circle. Let me give you an example. When I was working in K-12, before the whole shift, you can say whatever you want to say about Common Core. Honestly, I don't even know if it's still called Common Core anymore, but before the shift of Common Core, when you would teach standards, they were always the same standards going up from, especially like middle school to high school. They were kind of the same same standards, but kind of like at different levels. Like you still know adding, but then a different variation of adding from like sixth grade to 12th grade and things like that. When the shift occurred, then it was like, wait a minute, why do we keep talking about the same ones? Let's make sure we take a deeper dive into this particular set of concepts, make sure that our students get it so that it can be the solid foundation to move to the next one. And they're constantly learning instead of, you know, learning the same things over and over with a broader perspective. Let me know if that makes sense. So if you can take a deeper dive into what you're learning, get that solid, then you can have a solid foundation to go to your next level instead of keep learning the same things at a wider scope. Now, some people have their thoughts about that, but that's how I look at it. I'd rather for you to drill down on what you already have, build that foundation so that you can move from, you know, introductory to expert. I mean, up there to that level. All right. And so that's what you're going to do. Promise me that you will take action, whether you take action with me and be one of the first 10 people to DM or comment, get it done, or you tell me, you know what, Dr. V, thank you so much. I am going to go look at this on my own. It doesn't matter to me. I just want you to take action within the next 48 hours. All right. Do that. Take action. If there's something I said in this episode resonate with you, let me know down below. Be sure to also share it to some of your other colleagues. Like, hey, you might want to, you know, take some action here. Or even if you take this and say, you know what, I heard something from Dr. V on the Remarkable Edge live series show. And I think we should come back as a team and look at some of the things that we've been doing as far as our investments with coaches, consultants, strategies, and things like that. And at least start the conversation and then come back and let me know how that worked out for you. All right. So as we wrap up, I wanted to make sure that you stay connected, like the show, share it, and stay tuned for our next week's episode where we talk about the high performers trap, why excellence becomes your biggest liability. And trust me, you would not want to miss it. So again, be sure to follow me, comment down below, or DM me, get it done if you want to be one of the first 10 people to get your complimentary audit of your shelf help to make sure we turn it into actual help, and understanding that that is a $2,500 value, but I am doing that complimentary for the first 10 people. All right. And why? Again, because at the end of the day, bold execution is what separates the remarkable from the mediocre. All right. So I'll see you next week. Bye.